We're on November 16th, the beginning here of week number 3. And this week, what we're looking at is really how things are fitting together in our assembly. And we're using our first draft drawings kind of as our basis. And we're checking the dimensions that were given to us in the actual problem on the pictorial that I gave you guys. So some of those fits that are in there, we just want to like verify them and see if they're okay. So yesterday what we were doing is we were running down an Excel spreadsheet that I created, whether you do it in a PDF format and fill it in manually, that's fine. Or if you want to do it using Excel and filling in the fields, it's totally fine. Both formats are out there for you to use. As we're on the screen here, I'm going to use the Excel format version. So you'll see me kind of filling those in so that they're easy to read, and then I'll put the values out there a little bit later for you to have for reference. But as we've been going along and we kind of did, I don't know, the first third or so of the fits that are there, we found that they all seem to be okay. So we're going to continue on, and we're going to check some more fits here that I have identified. And then I'm going to also introduce you to how we can update and get those drawings in their final form that are going to then reflect the tolerances that we are verifying here. So that's what I have on the docket for today. As far as due dates for this, I guess I didn't put it officially on here yet, but I did mention it yesterday. The due dates are going to be at the end of the day on the 22nd. So we're going to kind of stay in that same rhythm of our due dates being on Monday at midnight. And then next week is already going to be Thanksgiving. So we're just going to be Monday through Wednesday next week, with Thursday being off. And then we'll be back then the following week on the 29th, which then when we get back, there's only 2 weeks left, which is crazy town. So what I'm anticipating is before we leave for Thanksgiving, we'll kind of have this all done, okay? Because really after we verify our fits and we do our second drafts of our drawings, then it's just assembly drawing to do, and that's like boom, 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 okay? So we should be done with this project before we leave on Thanksgiving. I'll probably have it due after Thanksgiving, but as far as, I mean, if you wanted to shoot for getting it done, I think that's totally doable with how we're progressing here. All right, so then the last 2 weeks we'll be doing like, I don't know, I kind of undecided. I did have another project thought up, but I don't know, I'm rethinking that. We might do something else, so we'll see. Okay, so let's get into what we need to today though. So. If you are looking for the information that I'm going to be referencing today, it's all going to be in the week 3 folder. And the handout that I have in here, there's 2 of them, but they're of the same thing. And it's in these 2 formats. So it's the check sheet in a PDF form or the check sheet in the Excel spreadsheet form. I have my check sheet up, and this is what it is in whichever form you decide to use. And if you use the PDF version, just make sure that things are legible so that I can read them, but also that you can kind of fit it in there, and you're going to have to scan it and then upload it. The Excel you can fill out, and then you can just attach the file itself or do an export and make a PDF too. It's up to you, whichever way. Both of them are pretty straightforward. So where we left off yesterday, we went through up until the set screw location one, which is right about here. Okay, right about here. So we're going to be starting with this one today. And then, like I said, we're going to kind of make our way through the rest of the fits here, and we'll be able to then start looking at our drawings and how we're going to adjust those. So I know some people got, pretty far on these yesterday based on kind of the format that we were using, but there are a couple that I do want to demonstrate and make sure that we have a good handle on, and kind of what my description meant, because I know there was a question or two on that as well. So the first one that we're going to look at here is going to be the set screw location and the slide key cutout depth. Now, I don't know if these were the words that I used on the original one, because I think I might have changed the description here. So I just wanted to, hang it. Oh, there we go. This is the PDF version. So no, that one, I guess it is okay. It's this one right here we're going to be starting on. There might be one a little bit later that I changed. So I'm going to pull my spreadsheet up, and where I have this grade is where we're going to be starting. Now, the numbers that we see here aren't really reflective of what we're going to be doing. So that's why I want to demonstrate this and kind of show you a picture. So this guy is going to be utilizing the sliding jaw, the set screw, and the slide key, okay? So I'm gonna go underneath my document camera, okay? And as we look at the dimensions that were given to us, so on the actual slide screw here, I'm sorry, the slide key itself, the dimension that we're gonna be looking at here is gonna be this guy right here. So on the pictorial, they do give us 0.341 to 0.340. I drew it at 0.340, so it would be to 0.341. Okay, would be the top. So we want to check this, all right, and we want to determine then where we have this cutout right here, the 0.125. If our set screw is going to fit up in there, and oh my gosh, there's like three different views we got to kind of look at here. So this key is going to sit in this orientation horizontally like this, okay, so that our cutout is right here, and the set screw is going to come up in between, okay. And what we want to make sure of is that this isn't going too far in or too far out, so that it actually can catch on that set screw, okay? And that's going to be dependent on how it sits here in our sliding jaw, and then also the size of the portion of the set screw that's going to be, on center there. So what I want to do first is I want to check how far in and out this surface right here is from the edge of the part. So I wanted to kind of draw this, if you would, in a larger format so we can add some dimensions here and get a little bit better perspective, because that drawing is a little bit small. So here is the cutout in the sliding jaw. Okay, so here's that cutout, and that cutout dimension, if we call this 0, okay, if we call this edge 0, the left edge, so where I'm at is right here in this view right here, and then this is the cutout, okay? And if I look at this, okay, right here, the dimension of that on our pictorial view goes from 2.219 to 0.217. Okay, so it can go out that far and in that far. So if you would, kind of like this, right? Okay. Now, when I slide this in, okay, so in this orientation, this is going to fit right in here, okay? So I'm going to kind of put it in here. It's really not going to have much of a gap at all, but this key in this orientation, the slide key, is going to sit in right like that. And what I'm interested in is I want to know, this is that cutout for where that set screw is going to come up through the inside. I want to be sure that I don't have interference there. That's what I'm looking at. So I want to know where that is. And I'm going to have, like, for instance, the closest and the furthest away from that edge, okay? And so I want to determine from this side right here what this number is, closest, and what this number is, furthest away, okay? I want to know what that is from here to here and from here to here, all right? Because I want to ensure that when I'm at my worst case scenario, if you would, that my set screw is still within this bounds right in here, all right? I don't want it out here. I don't want it all the way in, okay? I want to make sure that it's catching because it needs to. I mean, that's what's going to keep that in place, okay? So I'm first going to determine where these two edges are. where these two edges are, okay? Now, to do that, I'm going to use the information from these two drawings. So if I know that this is going out to 0.219, that's as far out as it's going to go, okay? So my worst case scenario then, is if I'm all the way out over here, I want to know what my biggest gap is going like in here. And then I'm going to go as close as I can this way, and then how far away that edge is going to be, okay? So to determine that, I'm going to kind of start here at my 0, and I'm going to go out. And then the mating surface is going to be this surface right here, right? So that means that then my dimension going backwards is going to be right here, which is the 0.125. Now, if I look at my pictorial view and just see, did they give us any sort of a tolerance on there? They did not. So that means that it defaults to our title block, which is plus or minus 5 thousandths. So what that means is that this dimension from here to here, okay, from this edge, and these would be, you know, together, from here to here, this is going to be this value and this value, okay? I'm going to go like that. Now, the smallest number that it's going to be from that edge to here is going to be minus 5 thousandths. So it's going to go from 0.120, right, to, then I'm going to add 5 thousandths to 0.130. Okay, does that make sense? All right, so now what I want to do is I want to determine, okay, what's my furthest out point this way, and what's my closest point this way to that edge, okay? So now to get the closest point to that edge, that's going to be my smallest number minus my largest distance. Would you agree? My smallest number minus my largest distance. And that number is going to give me what's left over right here, okay? So if I do that, calculator, 0.217, I'm going to subtract off 0.130, and I'm going to get 0.087, 0.087. Agreed? So it's this one and this one. So I'm all the way out to 0.217, and I'm going to come back my greatest amount, and that's going to give me my smallest gap right here, okay? Now I'm going to do just the opposite. I'm going to go, okay, what's my furthest point out? And then the extreme on that end would be the smallest dimension here. So I'm going to take then these two guys. So I'm going to do 0.219 minus 0.120. And that's going to be 0.099. Is that right? 0.219, 0.120 minus, yeah, 0.099. All right, now what that tells me is I have to make sure that when I put my set screw in place here, that I don't hit either one of those numbers. So I'm going to do this very same thing for the set screw side now. I'm going to go like this, and I'm going to compare. And we're going to start with that same edge because the set screw is dimensioned from this very same 0 dimension, meaning the center line for that set screw. Okay, and if we look at the drawing, okay, that's where this is coming up, okay? Now they have it centered on here, 0.625, but we have to get a dimension from one edge. So on ours, we did add the dimension of 0.188. We're going to stay with, because we weren't given any different limits, we're going to stick with plus or minus 5 thousandths to default to our title block. So this distance right here, okay, this distance right here is going to vary plus or minus 5 thousandths on 0.188. So this is the same sliding jaw, so it's going to be 0.193 to 0.183. So it's the 0.188 plus or minus 5 thousandths, okay? That's how far it's going to kind of go back and forth, if you would. Now, our set screw is going to sit in here, okay, on center to wherever that kind of floats, right? So that's where our set screw is going to be. So we need to know how far in and out does that go so that we know that it fits where it's supposed to, inside of that little gap. So this diameter right here is a diameter of 0.141 to 0.142 to 0.140. Let's verify that. Okay, so if we look at our pictorial on that set screw, 0.420 to 0.142 to 0.140. I need to slow down. I'm thinking like 2 steps in front of the numbers I'm saying. That's why. Okay, so on center though, half of that is what I'm concerned with, okay? So my half that's going to be on this side of my center line is going to be 0.071 to 0.070. Agreed? Okay. So we want to know, where does this land? Where does this land from here, okay, to here? And we're going to kind of show a far and a wide, if you would, and that number. Okay, we want to know what those two numbers are because we want to be sure that they don't go into where these guys are landing. So we need our numbers to be bigger than 0.099, right? We want them to be on this side of that, okay? So what we're going to do then is we're going to say, okay, worst case scenario, closest one is going to be my smallest number combined with my largest radius, right? So we're going to take 0.183 and we're going to subtract off 0.071, okay? 0.183, 0.071. So my smallest dimension is going to be 0.112, okay? Now my largest dimension then is going to be, 0.193 minus 0.070, right? So that's going to be 0.123. 0.123. Now, these distances are away from this edge, So we're going to compare where our cutout lands, again, where this edge right here lands in relationship to that side of that part is going to be in this range right here. So our closest to the inside is that number, right? Over here, we want to make sure that we don't interfere with that. So we need our numbers, our smallest number, to be larger than that. And it is. It is. So we're good to go. Okay? So we're good. So there's not a way for me, if you would, when I put it on my spreadsheet here, that's why I said, see the demo in class, because there wasn't like 2 numbers we could compare. It's kind of like we had to do 2 and 2 and then compare the results at the end. So that's my demo for that one. And on the end of that demo, where is that? I accepted both of them because we were fine. Okay, and it's a mirror image on the other side, so we don't need to do the other side. Okay, any questions on that one? That's what I meant by that. So the numbers are here for no other reason than those were the numbers that were given to us, but they were part of the more than 2-step calculations that we did during that demonstration. So any questions on that? Yes?
So then we wouldn't write anything in the...
You really don't need to. There's nothing to write except, and maybe I'll do this. I'll just go like this, and we're just going to accept. That's it, okay? Based on the demo. I just don't know what else to write because I kind of wrote it out here. Does that make sense? Okay. We're going to have more opportunities to do more tolerance stacks in the future, and this is an introduction to the process. That's all that I want it to be. Most of the other things that we're interacting with are just 2 parts that we're comparing. This one happens to be 3 parts that we're looking at. Okay, so I wanted to kind of separate it out and do a little bit that's a little bit more involved than what my spreadsheet really is set up for. Does that make sense? So,
One more question.
Yes,
Up higher, where we had the min out and max out,
yes.
were we supposed to do the accept for those?
These guys, these numbers right here, we used in the calculation down here. So this was like an intermittent step.
Okay.
So this one right here, we didn't have to do an accept, and it got accepted down here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then that,
Yep.
you just have one X there. Should we accept the 0.016 too? It's probably hard to see, but where it says
the slide key width.
Yeah.
Well, remember that this one wasn't a separate drawing. This one right here is the combination of the width of the key inside of the slot on that sliding jaw. So this is this number, these two numbers right here are the key sitting inside of the actual jaw. So there's not a dimension to accept there. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So this dimension is an accepting dimension based on the fit that we achieved.
Okay.
So it was kind of like we combined two things here. So there wasn't one dimension to accept. Does that make sense? But I guess what we could do is go back up to the top here and accept these two guys then. These two are okay based on the fact that it worked down here. So we could actually mark these two accepting. Does that help?
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so we did our demo. Then the next one is going to be our vice screw hole diameter and the handle rod OD, okay? So let me put these guys aside. And we want to get the vice screw hole diameter. Vice screw and we need the handle rod. Okay. So if I go over here, the vice screw hole, it's this guy right here. And we are putting our rod handle through there. So this diameter right here. Now, if we look back at our pictorial, the diameter of the handle rod is 0.312 to 0.311. Okay, so I added that here. Okay, so that's what's there. And then this needs to slide through. So this is the handle portion that's sliding through the end of our vice screw. Okay, and that hole is right here, 0.344. Now, on that vice screw, they put this out to 4 decimal places, but they did not give us a tolerance. So what I decided to do was I just rounded it to 0.344, okay, and took plus or minus 5 thousandths, all right, because there's not a 4 place. And honestly, this is not a critical dimension. This is a clearance hole so that this can freely slip through here. And I'm sure all of us have, encountered a vise along the way where this slips through here and then we can crank on one side. Then when this comes up to the top, it kind of goes down again and so on. Okay, so we want this to freely fit in here, and that's what we're really checking is what is that freely floating fit. So I kept this at a diameter of 0.44, okay, plus or minus 5 thousandths then from our title block. And then this we're using the not that one, the 0.312 to 0.311 based on their number, okay? So on our spreadsheet, okay, you'll notice that the vice screw hole, its nominal dimension was 0.344. Added 5 thousandths to go to 0.349. That's its max number. 0.339 is its min, minus 5 thousandths. Okay. The handle rod, its high was 0.312 and its low was 0.311. So when we take the largest hole minus the smallest rod, we get the max clearance to be 0.038 or 38 thousandths. And when we take the smallest hole minus the largest rod, the minimum clearance is 27 thousandths, okay? In both cases, it's generous, okay? And it's gonna freely float through there, so I accepted both dimensions, okay, as printed. But again, we converted the 0.3438 to 0.344 and did a standard tidal block tolerance of plus or minus 5 thousandths. So if I look back at my drawing, this is gonna hold. I'm not gonna change that dimension on my vice screw, but I'm gonna add the limits for this, okay? So I'll cross this out, and those will be my limits for that one, okay? Any questions on that? Great, cool. Our next one, the handle ball diameter and the handle rod OD, outside diameter. So the handle rod and the handle ball. So if I look back over here, this dimension right here, the 0.312 through, is what is going to accommodate the handle rod here, okay? So if we look at our pictorial, we're gonna be putting the balls on the end, and that really is what helps the handle not to slip, you know, all the way through the vice screw end there. So these guys are going on the ends. Now, these are going to be going, actually maybe this is a better view. Our handle rod is gonna fit into this larger hole, but then once it gets in there, okay, this hole goes all the way through, but once it gets to the other side there, we're gonna actually pin this in place, okay? So there's gonna be a pin that's gonna be pressed in there, actually, you know, done at assembly. So what's holding this in isn't really the fit, if you would, because we're gonna find, I think on this one, if we look at the dimensions that are given, okay, the handle ball diameter is going to be 0.312, and the limits that are given to us are 0.313 to 0.312. And then the rod handle that's going to go through there is 0.312 to 0.311. So if we take the largest diameter on the ID of that ball and the smallest diameter on our handle rod, we get 2 thousandths clearance. If we take the smallest of both of those, so the smallest hole and the largest rod, it's line-to-line contact, so there's no clearance at all, okay? Glenn doesn't like that.
No.
Glenn's like, I don't buy that. Glenn, what are your thoughts on the fit there?
You're never going to be able to press that together.
Yeah, he feels that it's just too much, right? It's too much. You'd have to maybe even heat one up and cool one off if you had a chance. So what would your suggestion be? I mean, we're open, we're designers here. We don't have to go with what the book said or what the illustration said. What are your thoughts?
2 to 5 thousandths clearance.
2 to 5 thousandths clearance. So you'd like to see here a maximum clearance of 5 thousandths and a minimum of 2, okay?
Because at least then you can cap it.
Well, and that's where we start looking at, okay, what do we need to change then? We want to look at those two values. Now, we already used that diameter for our handle rod, and we kind of approved it, if you would, for fitting through freely our vice screw, okay? So it's probably not a terrible idea to leave that alone, all right? But we can also look at practicality-wise to hold 1 thousandths diameter over 5 inches. Isn't that easy to do? And it's a pretty small diameter, so it's gonna flex a lot potentially when this is being made. So because of the fit that we have, I mean, we have 27th, we have 32nd plus and minus a little bit. That's a lot, okay, over that length. So we could, you know, change this dimension if we wanted to, all right? And I wouldn't be opposed. I mean, me as the designer, my thought would be, why don't we open that tolerance up a little bit? 1 thousandth over that length seems kind of extreme, especially since it's just a handle. It's like not really a critical part. So how would you guys feel about maybe changing this to, well, if this is, what is this number decimal wise? 5/16. Is that right? 0.3125,
Yep.
5/16. Okay, so if we would say 0.313, and we would maybe go plus or minus, could we do plus or minus 5 thousandths? What do you think, Glenn? That would be 10 thousandths over the length. We'd have to go back, and that would go up to 0.318 to 0.308, right? And if we go back to our other, we got to go back up here because it affects this diameter affects. So if we say 0.318 down to 0.308, okay, this dimension goes to 0.40 thousandths, right? And this one goes up to 21 thousandths. We still have pretty generous clearance. What do you guys think of that? Okay. I kind of like that better. Anybody opposed to that? The designers that are here live? Okay, so I kind of like the idea of changing that over, like leaving it actually as a 3-place decimal that defaults to the title block. So we would be able to leave that dimension then as printed because it would be a plus or minus 5 thousandths. It would default to the title block. It actually saves us from changing that print at all. Okay, so we're going to leave that. So that means that on the next part here, we've got to look at the fit that we do. You see that? Does that make sense?
Because it defaults to the.
It defaults to the title block, so we don't need a plus or minus 5 thousandths, and we don't need to put any limits there. But now let's go down to the handle rod OD, and let's change it to these new numbers, 0.318, 0.308, okay? Now, these are going to be different. These are going to be different, okay. So as we look here, we have kind of a lot of interference between these two, okay? So we're going to have to change this ball diameter on the inside. And Glenn already decided he wants to have, what is it, 5 thousandths to 2 thousandths? 0.005 is going to be our, and 0.002 minimum, right? Minimum. So if we want to achieve that, and we have 0.318 on our handle, that means that we have to add 2 thousandths here, right? So this would be 0.320 would be the smallest hole there. Do you guys see that? How I got that? So we're trying to achieve 2 thousandths here. So if we know that our largest rod is 0.318, then that means our smallest hole has to be 2 thousandths larger than that. Okay? Now, if I want 5 thousandths on the other end, that means that I'm going to have 20 thousandths here. So then I've got to add at least 5 thousandths, but it's going to be more than that, okay? That's my minimum. So if I have this at 0.320 and I add, for instance, wouldn't be 10 thousandths. I'd have to be
0.325.
Point what?
Make it,
Point,
just make it to the default of 5.
point, what, 0.313?
0.325, make it.
0.3 what?
0.325.
Oh, 25. There we go. Okay. 0.325. So if I do 0.325, 0.308 minus, this would be 17 thousandths.
Why does it have to be that high?
It doesn't, actually. It doesn't have to be. We just have to make sure, like for here, and I think, Glenn, you were just saying 5 thousandths, right? You were just giving it 5 thousandths just because it's a round number.
17,000. It sounds like a lot, but in the end, I don't think it wouldn't overly be that much, especially since you're putting a keeper.
We're going to be
in there.
putting a pin, through there to keep it in place.
Isn't that ball going to be kind of loose on there, even with
It
that?
will
That's
potentially.
how you put the pin in.
Yeah, because remember this pin is actually going to be pinned at assembly, and then the pin is going to be like a taper pin. So since it's tapered, you're going to push it down in there and probably grind off whatever's left over. So what was that?
You can probably grind off what.
Exactly, and then that taper, as it goes in, is going to tighten that up. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's what's going to really keep it in place. But I wouldn't be opposed. I really wouldn't be opposed. I think 17 sounds like a lot to me in my head. Okay, so why don't we go 0.320? Why don't we go 0.323? How about 3 thousandths? And then that way, this difference is going to be 0.015. I know it's not that much difference, but it just feels a little bit better. Okay, I'm going to check with those who are online. Does anybody have any opposition to the numbers that we chose? Hi, Nick. Oh, I see a chat. Somebody did a chat here. Is the corrections Dropbox live yet? No, it's not.
It was Zach.
It was Zach. He asked me about that yesterday. He's gently reminding me. He knows it's not there. Corrections Dropbox. Wrote myself a note. Okay, doesn't sound like there's, the chat. No objections to the number change. Okay, cool. All right, so what we will do is I will reshare my screen and go back. Okay, so we will keep this here. So that means that our handle rod remained the same as we had made the change. And then now our handle ball diameter, that diameter is going to be different limits here, 0.323 to 0.320. So if we go over here, okay, that's going to be the number there. All right, that looks good. Okay, and then we have a check over here. Cool. Let's look at the vice screw groove width and the special key width. Make sure that that special key fits in there. So if we pull up our vice screw and we find our special key. So let me go over here. Special key, we're going to look at this number right here, and then we're going to look at the width of the groove right here. So as we look at our pictorial, the special key, we are given 0.125 to 0.122 is the width. Okay, so 0.125 to 0.122. And then if we look at the screw right here, the width here is 0.131 to 0.128. So here, 0.131 to 0.128. Okay, so when we look at those two, making sure that our special key fits inside, the high dimension is 0.131, the low dimension for the groove width is 0.128, the high dimension for the special key is 0.125, and the low dimension is 0.122. So our max clearance is going to be when the groove is at its widest and the key is at its narrowest. So we have 9 thousandths clearance. Then our minimum clearance is going to be when the key is at its widest and the groove is at its narrowest. And that's going to be 3 thousandths. In both cases, we have clearance. So I have an accept and accept here. On the 3 thousandths, you might have to tap it in a little bit, right, Glenn? But not awful, not awful. All right, the next one, we want to look at the sliding jaw ID and the special key OD, all right? Now, as we look at how this is going to go together, I have a little sketch and I'm gonna draw it. some of you might have a good idea, but there might be a couple parts here that, you know, aren't coming together in your head or not making a whole lot of sense. So what I want to do is I want to kind of show these little inners that we don't end up seeing due to the pictorial. So it's really what's going on in the body right here. Okay, what's going on in that body right there. So we know that in our sliding jaw, we have this threaded portion, and our collar is going to fit in here. And then we also have this 3/4 of an inch that is going to be bored to a flat bottom. So if we kind of look at the side view here, I'm going to kind of enlarge this. And this would kind of continue down. This would go like this. It would kind of come out and down and whatever. Okay. And our center line for that bore is we're going to have bore is going to be like bottoms out about here-ish. Okay, it's a bottom bore, and then we have it threaded, you know, to this portion like right here. Okay, so our collar is going to be sitting inside here. Okay. And it's going to kind of come down. So the collar is going to be threaded here, it's going to come down a little bit, go down here in the inside like this, okay? And then the collar has an ID on it. So if you would, be kind of a cutaway of this, right? Now the bottom of this bore, okay, is 1.187, like that, okay? Our collar is going to fit in here. That's this guy. That's this collar right here, but it's actually going to sit in like this, in this orientation. It's going to sit in there like that, okay? And when, I'm going to increase this a little bit because I gotta get a little bit more. I know this is not in proportion to the front of this face. I think this would go out a little bit further and be kind of sitting like this, okay? All right. Now, what's going to fit in here is going to be our vice screw. Okay, our vice screw is going to sit in here like this. And at this area right here, this is going to go down, this is going to go up, this is going to go like this. Okay, and what's going to happen here is this is where our special key, let's see, I shouldn't make it so tall. This is where our special key is going to sit. The special key is going to sit right in here, okay? And what that does is when this goes in and our special key is in place, so how you have to assemble this is you're going to put the, we're going to put our vice screw in. We're going to put our special key in place. We're going to put our collar on, and then we're going to thread it into this hole. Okay, makes sense? Now, what that special key does is that is what actually keeps this moving back and forth. So as I rotate my screw, then this is going to come along back, and it's going to go back and forth within here, okay? And this is actually going to be, we want this a little bit closer to the front here, because then this can push up against there to push it forward, and then it's going to pull back on here to go backwards. Okay, so this is going to float in here just a little bit. We don't want it to float much, but it's going to float a little bit in there. Okay. Now, what we want to check is that the outside diameter of that special key is not going to interfere with the inside diameter that is here on our sliding jaw. Those are the dimensions we're looking at this point. So if we go back over here, sliding jaw ID, okay, that is the, you know, this bore right here, and that diameter is 0.750 to 0.748, 0.750 to 0.748, and that's on our sliding jaw. Here we go. Okay. So I have that on my spreadsheet here, 0.750 to 0.748. Then what we want to do is we want to look at the special key OD. Okay, so the special key OD is a 3-place decimal. So on our pictorial, that outside diameter is 0.718, okay? There's no tolerance on it, so it is going to default to the title block, plus or minus 5 thousandths. So on the spreadsheet, we're gonna add and subtract off of 0.718, 5 thousandths, and, 0.712, right? 0.712, plus or minus 5 thousandths. So this has to be a difference of 10 thousandths. Okay. So now we're gonna look, is there clearance? So we're gonna take 0.750 minus 0.712, and we'll have 38 thousandths. And then we're going to do the same thing, 0.748 minus 0.722.
Why is it 0.712?
Because it's plus or minus 5 thousandths. Did I do my math wrong?
I think you were right.
0.713. Then this one was wrong. So this should be 0.723, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's the one I did wrong. I'm sorry. My fault. So let me delete that. Yeah, thank you. So 0.750 minus 0.713. Thank you. You know, I like my calculator, but I'm not real good at using it, and I don't know how to get out of it when I get into trouble. Okay, 0.750, but I don't know what it is about using my calculator on my phone. I don't know if it's that I can't feel the buttons. It just doesn't feel right.
I know what you mean.
75713 plus. Okay, so 37 thousandths. Okay, and let's do this one. 0.748 minus 0.723 plus 25 thousandths. Okay, so there is generous amount of clearance in both cases, so we could accept both of those dimensions. Okay, both of those dimensions. So this one is good, and the one that was there on the drawing itself. So that was part of the note. This is okay. That's okay. So it's that diameter right there. All right. Home stretch here. So we did those two. The next one we have is the sliding jaw, depth of bore, and then I have the collar length. This might be. Yes. Okay. So if we go and we look at our drawing, we want to make sure that our collar isn't too long for the depth here, okay? And I think it's pretty obvious when we look at the numbers, but if we compare those, we did do the comparison just to be sure. So this was 0.187, and it defaults to the title block plus or minus 5 thousandths. So 1.192 to 0.182 for the sliding jaw bore depth. And then the collar length is 0.812, but it's plus or minus 5 thousandths as well, defaults to the title block. So 0.817 to 0.807. So again, a lot of room here that we have to float. But this dimension now is going to be important for the end of our vice screw. So if we look at the sliding jaw bore depth and we compare it to the space that's left over when the collar is in there, all right, and that's these two numbers right here, these two numbers. So what I did was collar and bore space, and that's going to be how much room is left over from here, from the collar to the end of the bore. That's that number right there, okay? And that number is the maximum clearance and the minimum clearance from the one above, okay? So that's what we have here. So the high number for that amount of space is 0.385 and the low number was 0.365. So it's this difference right here, okay, from the collar when it's in the position. Now, the vice screw groove to the end. The vice screw groove to the end. Let's look what that means. So that means I want to know this groove from here, which is the end of the collar, to the end of our vice screw, to that little end right there. I need to know that number. This number needs to be smaller than that number, right? That number needs to be smaller than that number. So let's look. I gotta find my vice screw drawing. Here it is. Okay. All right. Now, okay. So I need to know my number right here, this guy right here. So on my enlarged view here, I know that I have 0.25 to the end. Now, this number is 0.25 on our pictorial drawing. So it's a 2-place decimal. It defaults to the title block. So that's plus or minus 20 thousandths or 0.02. So that means that this is going to go up to 0.27 and down to 0.23, right? From that end. Then I've got my groove, okay? My groove has a limit tolerance on it of 0.131 to 0.128. So 0.131 to 0.128, okay? So now what we need to do is we need to add our worst case scenarios here together. Let's see how I did it on my spreadsheet. Okay, so maximum dimension, okay? Maximum dimension is gonna go from my maximum number here to my largest number on my groove, right? That's gonna be the biggest number overall. So the max is going to be equal to 0.27 plus 0.131, right? 0.131. So that number looks like it's going to be
0.401.
point what?
401.
0.401. Okay. My minimum number is going to be equal to my smallest and my smallest, right? So that's going to be 0.230 plus 0.128. 0.23 plus 0.128. 0.358, right? 0.358. So let's look on our spreadsheet. .401, 0.458. There we go. 0.358 to 0.350. So now what we need to do is we need to determine what is our maximum clearance. So this is the space on the collar to the end of that bore, 0.385. That's the maximum amount. So we're going to subtract our smallest number, okay, for right now. And our maximum clearance, maximum clearance is going to be 27,000. So that's good. But now we're going to take, all right, the smallest amount of bore depth minus our largest amount of the end of our vice screw, and we can see right away there's an issue here, right? And that's going to be a negative 0.036. That negative means that there is interference. So there's actually a maximum interference of 36,000. So I repeated that here, okay? Now, I would reject this, right? I'm going to reject this. And I've got to figure out then what I need to change, okay? What I need to change. Now, as I look at my parts, we always want to look at things in terms of what is the easiest thing to change, okay? What is the easiest thing to change? So if I go over here and I look at my drawings, okay? I'm going to kind of we want to, kind of adjust things here. Now, I know that I have a part in this groove that I already approved, so I'd like to not change my groove, okay? As we look at the length of our overall screw, it's kind of to a nice round number. It's 6 1/4, all right? I kind of like that number, so I'd like to keep that if I could to that end. Not a huge deal, but it's 1/4 of an inch. It's kind of they're nice numbers to work with, okay? If I look at then the other part that would need to be adjusted, if you would, it's the depth of this hole right here, okay? The depth of that hole. So what that would mean to me is when I actually put this in, I would just go deeper. To me, that's probably the easiest place to make the change in terms of changing the parts. What are your thoughts? I agree. To me, I just go deeper, right? All right. Now, let's see if I've got room for it. I believe I do, but I'm going to look at my actual print. I think it goes to about half, if I remember correctly. Oh yeah, I've got room. Yeah, about 3/4. So we'd have to kind of look here. So let me see, how much am I over? I'm only 36 thousandths over. That's a little bit more than a 32nd of an inch. I can see physically I have a 32nd of an inch. I probably would bump it up to about it's 36, 30. Well, we really want to look at okay. So right now, this is my number, right? And I've got interference of 0.036, okay? And remember, when I'm pushing on this is going to naturally slide and it's going to push on there. So I don't want my gap to be huge, right? But I also don't want it, I obviously don't want to be negative either. So when I look at this number, okay, if I go to, for instance, 1.188, 1.187 minus 0.25, okay? If I increase this to 1.25, okay, that means I'm adding 63 thousandths, okay, or a 1/16 of an inch. What that means is my gap then will be about a 32nd of an inch minimum, which I think is a pretty good number. All right, just a 32nd of an inch, we're going to see a little bit of like, for instance, I call it backlash. So when you go forward with it and it pushes up against there, before it starts coming backwards, it's going to actually have to back up until it hits this back side. So it's going to be pushed forward and then it's going to kind of come back and then it's going to start actually rotating back, okay? And that'll be about a 32nd of an inch, okay? Because now we've added that in there.
Most places are more than that.
Exactly. So I think going up to 1 1/4, which is a nice even number, without going crazy, I think would be a good idea. Any opposition to that? Any opposition to that? And again, it's really just changing the depth of that bore is easier than kind of messing around with the end of the vice screw. To me, that's how I look at it. Any other ideas? I'm open. I'm gonna stop sharing for a second. I'm gonna go back. No objections on the number. Well, that was from before. Does anybody online, live, any questions, comments, input on this changing the depth to 1.25? $42. I guess I didn't see it there before. Nope. Okay. All right. And I don't hear any other opposition, so I'm going to assume that it's okay with everybody else. So we're gonna reshare the screen, and we're gonna update our sliding jaw depth of that bore to 1.250. okay? And that's gonna be deep. We don't have to put deep on there, but that's the number, okay? So we're gonna have to, we're okay with the size of the bore. The depth of the bore needs to go to 1 1/4. Isn't this fun? So much better than just, copying what's there. All right. So what we need to do then is we need to change this to 0.125, the sliding jaw depth of the bore. This is going to go to 1.25. This is going to go to 1.255. Go to 1.24. 1.245, yeah. And now these differences are going to be a little bit different, aren't they? So 1.255 minus 0.807, 0.448, and then these two, 1.245 minus 0.817 equals 0.428 minimum clearance. So now these guys change. The high is 0.448, 0.428, and using the numbers that we have here, 0.448 minus 0.358 equals 0.09. And then this one, minimum clearance, 0.428 minus 0.401, 0.027. There we go. So now we don't have any issues anymore. Delete. And we can take that. There we go. Any questions on that one? So good. The last check I have here is on the special key ID to the vice screw groove diameter, okay? So we pull out our special key again. We just want to check this size to the size right here, okay? Now, both of these are to the 3-place decimal, so they're both going to default to the title block, okay? So that means that this is going to be plus or minus 5 thousandths on that nominal size. So if I go to my special key ID, my high is going to be 0.395 and my low is going to be 0.385. Then on my vice screw groove, it is 3/8 of an inch or 0.375. It's going to go up to 0.380 and down to 0.370. So my maximum clearance is 25 thousandths and my minimum clearance is 5 thousandths. So again, it might be a tap on sometimes, but we look good there. So I didn't reject. That's an accept. We're going to accept. Actually, we can change these guys with the new numbers. Okay. To accept. I'm just going to put reject, oopsie, REJ, original. So we changed the numbers. Okay. And I think that takes us to the end. Any questions? All right. So what you need to do is you need to go through and fill in, whether it's on the Excel spreadsheet, hopefully following along with these 2 lectures and, putting your numbers in place. I am not going to put this sheet online. If somebody needs these numbers, they have to do what you guys did, sit through the whole lecture. Okay. So I'm just going to say, go to the lecture to find get all the juicy details. Okay. All right, so now that we kind of have everything figured out, right, how things are going to fit together. This is what we just went through the last 2 days and looking at these dimension by dimension. This is the design process. This is tolerance stacks. This is figuring out fits, okay? And yes, we use their numbers as the basis, but we had to prove it. And we found some places where we wanted to make some changes or needed to make changes, okay? That's the big part of your job. It's not just about making the drawings. It's not just about putting the dimensions in place. Remember, each one of those dimensions has a tolerance, whether it's given to us or we default to the title block, okay? We have a tolerance on everything and we have to check the fit. So now we've got to update our prints because what we did was we went through and we kind of marked these up. So I'm going to just pull my prints out. I'm going to look at them underneath my document camera. And I'm going to, now these are in no particular order at all, okay? And I'm going to put aside the ones that I know that I need to make changes to. They're the ones that I marked up, if you would. So I know I need to do this one. So I'm going to put this on my got to change pile, okay? So this one though, actually, yep, I gotta put this limit on here. So that's another change pile. That's my special key. My collar though, look at, I didn't make any changes to this. This one's good, right? This one's good. So we're not gonna do anything to that guy. I'm gonna put that on a different pile. That's the good to go pile. First draft was good. This one, I do need to update the one dimension on here, otherwise everything else was okay. So just on here on the vice screw, just that one dimension. On my sliding jaw, I've got some limits to put in place here. I've got this one, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the depth right here. I'm gonna highlight this one as well. I gotta put that guy in place. I don't wanna forget about it. The sliding jaw has to go on the change pile. My handle rod remained the same, right? At first we're going to put a limit on there, but then we defaulted back to the title block tolerance, so that one looks okay, no problem. Our sliding key, we have 2 dimensions that we have to add limits to on this one. On our set screw, the diameter here, we need to put the limits on that, and I think that's it. Is that it? Is that it? Oh, let me look. Nope. Base. Base, we've got a couple dimensions here. We've got to add this one in, get rid of that guy. And then we've got a couple more limits to put in, so the base. And then our jaw plate, nothing changed. Nothing changed on our jaw plate, so that was good to go. Okay, so 3, I think of our 10 drawings remained in first draft mode, right? So now the other ones are the ones that we need to update, okay? And I know, like, as you guys have been doing this, working with the dimensions and things like that, you're like, cool, Zach, we get to create and mess around with the tolerances now, okay? And how do we do that? Oh, good. I think I have alluded to this already. We really actually have to make a style for each one of the changes that we make, okay? And that's why I wanted to go through first to kind of get the bulk of them done, so that now we're just going to focus on the ones that change, all right? So we're going to pull up, for instance, let's pull up our base drawing in AutoCAD. I'm going to save this so that I have it. Oh, it should have saved it. Open up my base. There it is. Okay. Here's my base. Okay, so in this this section view that I have here, this is the area that I need to make my changes. So I need to change this dimension. I need to change this dimension. And I'm going to get rid of this guy, and I'm going to add the depth in here, right? I'm going to add the depth in there. Now, my question is, so we will get rid of this guy. We're going to delete that one out, and we're going to go from the section top to the bottom right here. From the section top to the bottom right there. So now I'm set at 2 place right now. Right now, all I have is a 2 place, a 3 place, and whatever that third one was. Oh, that was the center mark, 3rd place. Okay. So right now I need to make a dimension. If I look underneath, okay, I need to make a dimension that goes from 0.502 to 0.498, all right? But before I do that, I need to know what my nominal dimension is that I drew it at, okay? And I didn't draw it directly. I think I drew it the way that it was dimensioned. So what I need to do is I'm going to go to a 3-place decimal here, and I'm just going to dimension, okay, a linear dimension from that endpoint to that endpoint, because I got to know what it's drawn at. Oh, it's drawn at 1/2 inch, okay, 1/2 inch. So if I look back at my dimension, my drawing here, then my 1/2 inch is right there. It's drawn at 0.500. So that means that my tolerance is +2, -2. Okay, 2/1000s, +2/1000s, -2/1000s. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my drawing here. I'm going to get rid of this dimension. I'm going to delete it out of there. And now I'm going to create a new dimension style. And I'm going to do a new, and I'm going to start with that 3-place decimal, okay? And instead of being copy of 3-place, I'm going to do underscore limits underscore 0.002, okay? And just as a call out, all right, because this is probably going to be the only one, yeah, of those 3 that's going to be like this. So you can call it really whatever you want, okay? So I'm going to do continue, and then I'm going to go to the tolerances here, okay? Go to the tolerances, the very last tab. So the primary units are 3 decimal places, which I want, and I'm going to go to the tolerance tab at the very end. And now what I'm going to do is it says method. Underneath method, I'm going to change this to limits. And then the precision is still at 3 decimal places because it's from the previous. And my upper limit, this is where I'm going to, off of my nominal value or my base number is 0.5. So my upper limit is going to be adding to it. So it's going to be 0.002, okay? Because I need that to be 0.502. And my lower limit will always be a minus, but I don't have to put the negative in there, 0.002, oopsie, 0.002, okay? All right, and then I can hit OK. And then I can say set as current. Before you go out of here, set that one as current, and then close. Now I'm going to do my linear dimension, and I can either grab it from the top here or I can do it off of my menu. So I'm going to do that to that. There we go. Now I'm going to put it where I want it to go. Yeah, and then you'll notice that I have a dimension line crossing an extension line. So guess what you get to do? I get to move this so that it's nearest right about here, okay? And then I'm going to add a line from there to about there. And then I'm going to go and I have to create my gap here, and I'm going to do nearest to about there. There you go. You can't have a dimension line crossing an extension line, so we had to change that a little bit. Okay, so there's that one. Cool. Now I'm going to do the next one, the 1-inch dimension. Okay. Now I'm assuming I'm pretty sure I have that in there as a 1 inch. So when I look at my drawing, okay, I need this to be +4 -0, right? +4 -0, because I'm going to have my minimum dimension is going to be 1 inch. +4 -0. Okay. So now I'm going to delete that dimension out of there. And I'm going to go in here and I'm going to Dimension Style Manager. I'm going to do a new. And this one is going to be, I'm going to get rid of the copy of. You can leave it if you want to. And this is going to be a limit and 0.004. I'm just going to do continue. And I'm going to go to that last tab where the tolerances are. This is going to be a limit dimension again, 3 decimal places. My upper limit is going to add 4 thousandths, and my lower limit is going to subtract off 0 because I want that at 1 inch. And I'm going to say, okay, set as current and close. And now I'm going to create my linear dimension from here to here. And actually, I want it to go on the other side. I'm going to place it right here for right now, but then I'm going to grab onto this and I'm just going to grab the grips and I'm going to put it on the other side because I already created a gap there from the original drawing, the original dimension. Okay, so that one's done. So you kind of get the hang of this. you get to do that. And it's not many dimensions. This one has 3. Some of them only have 1 or 2. So it's really not that big of a deal, But there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 drawings, okay? 7 drawings. These are the ones that I'm gonna add to a Dropbox. We'll do all 7. Does that sound okay on one Dropbox? I think that makes sense. Or do you like it better when it's split up, maybe 3 and 4? 7 is okay, just 1? Okay, so there'll be 2 things that you have to hand in for week 3. There's going to be your fit check sheet, okay, going through all of those, whether it is in the form of manually filling it out as a PDF and then re-scanning and uploading the PDF, or filling out the Excel spreadsheet with the numbers, okay, using the numbers that we have. Then the other assignment is going to be updating these 7 prints, and I'll list them all, okay? And what you need to do is put the numbers that we agreed on as we went through our spreadsheet, okay? Many of them are what was given to us in the original drawing packet, but there was 1 or 2 that we changed. So those have to match what we did here in our lecture. Joe.
Like I had to cross out a bunch of things. Is that okay if I just crossed them out and wrote the new thing?
Yeah.
Underneath it? Okay. I don't
Oh, you mean on your, on the spreadsheet, that's fine.
Okay, I don't have to like.
No, you don't have to redo it, no. Okay. So that's where I'm going to kind of leave you guys, because I think from here we did a couple of these. Any questions on changing those dimensions? You're going to have to create, like I said, a new little style for each one, because I don't know that any of them are going to be the same for any of them on there, but that's okay. That's okay. The majority were taken care of in the 2 and 3 decimal place ones. Just these the ones that are going to be the fits we have to update. All right, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to go back to our virtual live people. Do you guys have any questions? That's your catchphrase, not mine, Zach. I know. But you're the one who reminds me of it. You seem to enjoy getting to do stuff. Okay, that's all that I have for today. And let me know if you have questions along the way. What I will do is I will put I'll put the video online so that if you need to go back and reference this, you certainly may. But otherwise, let me know if you have any questions, and you should be all set. Okay, all right. That's all I have for today. Have a great rest of your day.